I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Vickie Spray to talk with her about her article in the March-April issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Vickie, welcome. Thanks for being with me.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Jenny.
This is your first article in On Purpose Woman magazine, and I get article ideas from all sorts of places. Sometimes I'll get a blog from someone and I'll think this is a great fit. Other times somebody will actually write something for the magazine or they'll want to repurpose something they've already written. In your case, I just happened to see a Facebook post. I think it was in your Facebook group
Yeah.
that you did, and I really liked it. And I just reached out and said, may I use it in the magazine? And you said yes. So thank you for saying yes.
It's a perfect fit and you have a good eye for that kind of thing.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah.
I kind of do, yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
I
do.
know that I when I read it, I knew it resonated some with me, and I knew it would resonate with other women as well. So your article is called Freckles of Might, and it's a great title. So it's gonna people have to read it to see what the heck she's talking about, right? But you start out by recalling a recent visit with a family member. What happened? What was going on there?
I had an uncle come in from Charleston visiting us, and he had stopped at his sister's house and came to our home with a box of photos. And I was delighted to see this photo because I don't have a whole lot from my childhood. And when I saw the photo, I remembered that little girl, that young girl. Somebody said that she was probably about 12, and I imagine that that person's probably right. I really have no idea, 11 or 12 years old. And I was just looking at that face and feeling her. And, I've done a lot of work, so I really, really love her. And that feels good. That feels good to
Yeah.
love that little girl that's inside that was so confused and so distraught in being born into a physicality that was not conducive to peace and harmony, so to speak. So that instigated something inside of me, and I just looked at her and I saw those two freckles, and the story of her pretending that she was Hercules, and just came to me, and I sat it down and wrote it. You know how sometimes things just flow. You don't have to fight,
Hmm.
and it just flowed, and it was perfect because it was exact same timing that I know Spirit was working with me, tapping me on the shoulder, saying, "Darling, you've got to stop doing so much on your own, as if you could do anything on your own, but you have it in your head that you can." Um, and it's time to let it go. It's time to let go of that Herculean, I'm strong resilience that worked. It kept you alive. But there's
Yeah.
something so much more powerful than that. And it got my attention.
Well, gosh, I think we've done the whole article right there. That's amazing. But we're going to go a little deeper than that,
Yeah,
right?
okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's
The,
do it.
the the picture, and the picture is Vickie's picture is of that little 11 or 12-year-old is in the magazine with her article, and the two little freckles were like kind of right here, right side by side. And quite frankly, I watched Hercules some when I was young, but I never knew Hercules had two freckles. But Hercules apparently had two freckles in the exact same spot, right?
Yes, exactly. In my
Hmm.
memory. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of the actor, and I didn't put it, I was just rereading it again, and I didn't put the actor, but I think it was Kirk Douglas.
Oh, the old Hercules. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I think it
Okay.
was. I have a vision in my head. Good old
Yeah.
Kirk,
Well, he
the
played
shiny
roles
muscles.
like that very well. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, he
yes, yes.
did. And so those two little freckles became a symbol for you, for yourself. You related. You mentioned it just a minute ago, but you related. You saw something in Hercules that then you started to see in yourself.
Yes.
Talk
It was
about that.
something that, well, I needed to see it.
Hmm.
I needed to see something in the external world that would make my internal process feel more stronger than she was
Yeah.
feeling, you know? And I had this leap of imagination at that age. What is it they call the magical thinking where
Mhm.
he and we have something in common, and look how strong he is. And I latched onto that like a life raft while I was drowning. And it
Wow.
saved me because I needed to feel strong. My family was dysfunctional. My mother was an alcoholic. I don't say this too much, but she ended up being a prostitute in Orlando. And she ended up being killed by one of her Johns when I was 14 years
Wow.
old. And so I needed some strength because there wasn't a whole bunch going on around. And when I was in my mother's womb, her mother was murdered. And the headlines read, didn't know we were going to go this deep, did you? The headlines, but you got it, you can handle this. The headline, and I still have the copy, 1958. I was born in 1958. So a month before I was born in August. She was murdered in July. Headlines read, police blame nagging because her boyfriend shot her and then shot himself, and his son found them. So I was born to a mother who had lost her mother to murder, and then I had lost my mother to murder. So I needed to be Hercules, and again, and then of course there was this, you know how families just make up stuff and call it true.
Mhm.
They were right, and then generation after generation after generation, we keep calling it truth. There was supposed to be this Spanish curse, you know, and so now I'm cursed. You know, I'm in this, you know, generation family of history of women, and I'm cursed by murder. You know, so I needed to be Hercules. And it worked. It worked. I mean, truly,
It kept you alive, you
it
said.
did
Kept,
keep me
yeah.
alive. It kept me alive. It kept me away from men who were dangerous.
Hmm.
It kept me away. It got me in touch with my instincts. It got me in touch with my wisdom. It got me in touch with my intuition because it was important to me to stay alive. And I used my strength to do that. And you know, as much as I had it in my mind to be strong, there's also the resistance to that. There's also, you know, something that was always pulling you. And so having to fight against that pull made me strong. And this was so much fun because I had forgotten this until I reread the article just recently. When I got that picture from my uncle, I went and looked in the mirror because I had forgotten about them, you know, and it was almost spirit tapping the shoulder, saying, darling, it was so good that you had that. It was so good that you had that, and you don't need it anymore, and the freckles are gone. And
Freckles are
so
gone.
freckles are gone. Freckles. So the thing that I grabbed onto to survive, and the thing that I needed to survive, and we all have done it. You know, as a spiritual counselor, I always watch out for what did you grab onto as a child to survive. A lot of women, it's placating to be loved, or manipulation to be loved, or you know, go under the radar, or become a rebel. We all have things that we've grabbed onto to survive.
Yeah.
And the thing that we grabbed on to survive at a certain point in our emancipation and our growth, our soul's expression or expansion, the one thing that we grab onto then has to be let go of. And so that is why it's so difficult on this healing journey for so many of us, is because the thing that saved us, and Source will allow us to do that. Source will
Hmm.
allow us to grab onto alcohol, the ideation of suicide. I grabbed onto all of that. Drugs, sex, anything to make us survive at some point has to be let go of. And that's why it is so difficult, because it saved us, and now Source is like, gotta go. And and we're like, no, because I'll die if I let that go.
Yeah.
I can't let that go. I'll die. And
Hmm.
most of us, and most all the women I'm sure that you deal with, they're powerful women. And you don't get to be in powerful women without having to deal with some things. Yeah. I don't even know if I answered your question.
Oh yeah, you way more than answered my
All
question. You
right,
did
good.
a great job of it. But what I realized is when you were speaking too, you were talking about being a spiritual counselor. Is I skipped over that part asking you to what did you want to tell us about yourself? I was so eager to get into the conversation. So let's take a little side step here
All
for a
right,
minute and
a
tell
little
everybody
caveat.
about you.
Well, I'm a spiritual counselor, semi-retired. I say that. And it really is true. I mean, it is true. I try to remind myself that when I'm putting, client sessions on my book. Um, and recently I moved toward becoming a medium, and that's a story in itself. A little bit of woo woo, a lot of woo woo actually. Uh, and I'm still I put it on my website, and I'm seeing people. I'm being a medium, and it's very successful, but it's still kind of weird because it's weird.
And
It
you're right
just
in the middle of it, and you still think
uh,
it's a little weird, right?
yeah, yes, I think I'll probably always think it's weird,
Hmm.
because it just is. And I will just tell you, I'll tell you a little bit about that. Lots of woo-woo stuff to get me into spiritual counseling, but the mediumship happened probably about a year ago now. And there's something, Mary and I built this house, and there's something about the kitchen sink. When I'm at the kitchen sink, I've had family members who have gone to the non-physical to come to me, and it's weird. And then I had an aunt who kept coming to me, which was my mother's sister, whom did not fare well either.
Mm.
She ended up being an alcoholic and died in Arcadia, which is a mental institution in Florida, with cirrhosis of the liver. So she, beautiful physically women, but not a whole lot of tools. But she kept coming to me, and then she would just sit there, and it started getting me a little bit aggravated. And so one day I was not in a good mood, and I kind of said to her in a little quick, kind of angry way, "What do you want?" And she went away because evidently spirits don't like to be talked to like that. And so she went away. She went away, and about 3 weeks after that, I'm like, I don't know how this works. I'm sorry. What is it that you want? As soon as I said that to her, my mother came through. And I
Mm.
had not been able to contact my mother because I wasn't ready. And so when my mother came through, and I tell people this since then, no matter what happened with you and your mother, you're going to heal if you stay open, because the love there cannot be cut away. It cannot be cut away. No matter how dysfunctional she was, no matter how sad, no matter how neglectful, no matter how much she betrayed you, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It won't, that love connection can never go away. And so it was a very sweet reunion that I did not anticipate when I allowed Source to move me into being a medium. And it's still weird.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah,
I usually hear that people get into mediumship because they think they have a gift. Maybe it's been something that's been around since childhood, and then they decide to go take some classes that get certified or whatever you do. Yours just came to you.
it did. It did.
Yeah. And
And
you
it would have
said,
come to me earlier if I had been more open to it.
hmm,
But I am
yeah.
so my spiritual counseling is, I have most everybody who comes to me are people who've gone into therapy, but therapists are trained. I have a couple of clients who were trained therapists. They are trained to tip around. And mine is don't tip around. If you come to see me, we're going to root cause. And so
Mm.
all kinds of people avoid me, and that's okay. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on. But it would have come to me earlier, but because I'm so into the 3D, let's get her done, let's get that work done.
Mhm.
Let's clear out that core issue of I am unworthy. And what's so beautiful about this, Jenny, is that, and I didn't see this coming either. Since I allowed it, I have taken some classes so I could learn whatever I need to learn, because
Mhm.
it's useful, but not very much, and frankly, but I still did it. What's so fun about this is I've been using it as a spiritual counselor as well. So whoever shows up with my person, they call them sitters, whoever in the non-physical shows up for my sitter, it's because there's work that needs to be done. And so I'll
Mm.
say to my sitter, I'm like, we can go into spiritual counseling if you want to. If you don't, we won't. And thank goodness all of them have said so far, because that person's coming in because they had a soul contract, and they came in to expand their soul. And when I say expand their soul, what I mean, when we have an expansive soul, we're much more capable of having a more joyous and harmonious life, instead of the 3D world pulling us down with the ideas that are locked in our heads with conditioning and programming. And so that, so either way, we're going to go deep. That's the good news and the
Yeah.
bad news. Yeah.
And when you were talking about traditional therapy, I also, when I was in therapy for a while going through a divorce, about 6 months, I guess. And she was wonderful, but I'd also gone to somebody else at one point, and I was so too savvy. It was like I knew
Yeah.
how, okay, I'm gonna answer what they want me to, it was really very not very bright on my part, but
You
it's
would not
like,
be the first person to have done that.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, okay, and we're paying all this money and I'm going all this
Yep.
time, but I'm still going to tell you only the things I really want you to know,
Right.
and I kind of know what
Right.
they are because I figured you out because you're not going that deep with me.
Nope.
So,
Yeah.
just open it up, stick it in and twist it around and get people there a little bit faster. I have
True.
known people over the years too who told me that they were trained to actually have long-term clients, like year. I had a friend tell me that her therapist said she was at least 10 years, once a week for 10 years, it would probably take for her to be okay. I'm like,
Mm.
there's something messed up with that. I'm sorry. You know,
Well, yeah, well,
if you're
for
that,
most,
if
I
you're
would
in that
agree with that.
space, you
Well, I
probably ought
would
to be in a
agree with that.
hospital.
I would agree that,
Yeah.
and depending on the trauma,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and um, and this is important. It actually takes about 2 years for the person, and I don't say this to everybody, but I'll tell
Hmm.
y'all. It takes about 2 years really to just get your head above water. It's really like an alcoholic
Hmm.
that is waking up to the program and the conditioning of the mind. And so it takes about 2 years. So the first 2 years oftentimes it's about them. They did that. They shouldn't have done this. And I don't take 2 years, but it takes 2 years mostly for people to
Yeah.
even start considering that they're not a victim, though they were victimized, and they're not unworthy, even though they were treated as being unworthy. And so it takes, but after the 2 years, you can just like see that, damn, I am somebody. And then when you go
Mhm.
into the spirit world, being like, damn, I am somebody. I'm unique and I have something to offer the world.
Wow, yes.
Yes,
And I
yes,
think I think you just nailed what was going on with me because I guess I'd done some other work outside of therapy and I was ready to not be blaming anybody anymore. I
yeah,
was ready to move on. And this
yes.
particular person I was working with at the time, she didn't seem to want to go there with me yet. And so
Yeah,
I did end up, and I had found some, and I realized traditional therapy is just probably not for me. It's probably I need to go with someone else. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Vicki, I can only imagine how good you are at what you do because you have such a grasp of humanity and your own personal story. Let's get back to your article because you talk about in that moment of recognition of the little girl because as you said because of your situation, your home situation, and you also lived in some foster homes, I believe. So
mhm.
photos weren't being carried around from place to place. You weren't gifted with things like that. So this was a gift to you
It was a
that
gift.
reminded you of the little girl and what she had been able to do with such limited resources, right? This wonderful story she was able to make up and protect herself as much as she could.
Yes.
In in that moment of, looking in the mirror and going, the freckles are gone. How interesting, because I don't need them anymore. I don't know what my question is. I think I want to know a little bit more about the process. I know it's not just something you can go in 10 minutes, but the process from that little girl to the woman standing in the mirror saying, the freckles are gone. I don't need them anymore.
Mm.
I'm brave on my own. I'm a
Mm.
superhero on my own. It's a long journey. Was there one piece, one thing that you could talk about a little bit?
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing, Jenny. She thought she was alone. And so she had to be strong.
Yeah.
And she was never alone. And we as humans tend to think that a lot, that we're alone. Because especially if something traumatic has happened, and it has happened to all of us, being born into the physical is traumatic.
Mhm.
It just is. It's messy, it's hard, it's ridiculous, and it's traumatic. And so we've all had trauma, and we're born with into, at least one female. We don't know who else is with her to support her, but at least one female. And more than likely, she hasn't done a whole lot of work either. She's been programmed under the patriarchy that tells her that she's not as smart, not as powerful, not as strong, that there's a certain role that she needs to play, and she needs to look at herself a certain way. And if she's pretty, she needs to latch onto that because that's pretty much all you've got. So it's textured. When we're born to another human being, it's textured. And so we are going to, the female is going to get what that female has to offer. And most humans have not done the work of claiming their right to their spiritual identity. They claim their right to be human, and all of the unworthiness that comes with that. They're carrying generational neglect and betrayal and unconscious wounds from their mother, her mother, her mother. It is just how it is until it isn't. So one of the things that I latched onto was, I am strong. That I am strong is okay, but with that comes I am alone. And that's what Source Spirit has been nudging me away from, that I've been fighting tooth and nail. Because if I gave up my strength, and I allowed a partner in, meaning a spiritual partner, was that going to weaken me? Am I going to get to have as much say so? Am I going to be able to direct my life in the way I want to go? And so that's what they talk about, spiritual surrender. Working with clients, there's two things. Working with clients has been very beneficial for me because I get to see and experience their idea of who they think they are. And so then in my quiet times, I'm like, hello, Vickie. And all healers have to keep growing. And if they don't grow, they will burn out. So I know that you have to keep growing. So I check in with myself. Do I still carry any unworthiness? Do I still sense of unworthiness, belief in unworthiness? So having clients has helped me. It's been like free therapy. And I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that our souls, my soul's been around, and in this lifetime, it wasn't messing around. It was either I was going to go to my generational, stuff with my mother and my grandmother, or I was going to do something differently. And I've done something differently because my soul was big enough and wise enough in this lifetime to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, that I'm alone and I'm strong because I'm alone, that had to go away. And I haven't done it gracefully, and I haven't done it willingly because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I give that up, and where were you, dear God, whatever you want to, when bad stuff was happening. And so that's a process. That's something, and I now love Source with everything I have in me, but that's been a process. It's like, I had to go through, where were you? So if you were with me, where were you? Everybody has that. Everybody has that. A lot of people won't go there, but a lot of us need to. And I did that. So that's been a part of my process as well. I had to choose life consciously. And if I hadn't chosen it consciously, then the world would have just called it another human, gone for that lifetime.
You'd have carried on the generational curse, right?
Exactly. You betcha there would have been a curse. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's so difficult, how does one heal? One heals by being thrown to the ground when you find out what you're doing isn't working. And you're like, okay, this isn't working. What else you got? And going into the spiritual, and not religious, but there is a spiritual realm that is always calling us to it, always, with absolute unconditional love. And I did not know that for the longest time.
Vicki, I think it also requires something that you mentioned also, it requires surrendering. And I know I was raised to believe that strong people do not surrender. That's giving up, you know.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I'm talking about right there.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the last thing
Yeah.
on our list of things that we'll do.
Hmm.
And yet it's got to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. I visited with you. We were just figuring I was in October of 2023. I came to Tallahassee because you'd started a group down there with Gina, and I stayed at your and Mary's home and for 3 nights, I think it was. And I still think about those moments because you and we'd never
We
met
had,
in person. You
yep.
picked me up at the airport, and it was like I'd known you forever.
You just
And
give me
we
chills.
talked
we
nonstop.
we did. It was
We
so much
talked.
fun.
And yes, and I would tell you a little story and say, that needs to go in your book, Jenny, that needs to go in your book. And I've been thinking a lot more, and I'm doing some work on a book, sort of. I just don't
Okay.
know yet what it's going to be, more of a teaching memoir kind of thing, maybe. And
Okay.
I'm thinking, oh God, I wish I'd written all those things Vicki told me down. All that should be in your book, Jenny. Oh, because they just came up. You had that effect on me. I just found myself saying, and I would say something, then you would say something, and we would just play off each other. And it was a really delightful time.
It was. Delight is the perfect word. Delight is the
Yeah,
perfect word. And that's just, I've gotten older and I'm like, be smart, Vicki. Pay attention to who you resonate with and stop spending so much time with people you don't resonate with. So I've been giving myself permission to do that a little bit, maybe about the time you came along, actually.
really.
Just,
Well, lucky
yeah.
me.
Well, same here, darling. Same here. So
I
that's
so agree
important.
with you.
That's important. And I look forward
Yeah.
to you coming back down here. We're going to get you back down here.
I will get back down there. I will. And I'm hoping it's later this year because this is the 25th year anniversary of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. And we're celebrating here and online. And it'd be lovely to have a little celebration in Tallahassee as well.
Fantastic.
And so I love what you just said. That was I think a piece of really grounded advice that has nothing yet everything to do with your article. And that is that, if something doesn't feel right to you,
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah.
Don't keep hanging out with people you do not resonate with.
That's
Don't
right.
keep doing that same thing that you know doesn't work. But
Yes.
sometimes you need help and you need to
Yes.
ask for the help because that's
Yes.
been coming up in my life a lot recently. Just I'll read this thing and it's about asking for help. I'm pretty good at asking for help, but I'm also knowing there's other places I could be asking, other ways I
Ah,
could be asking
okay.
because I always saw in the early days of corporate career and all that, that asking for help meant you couldn't do it on your own. And that's not a good thing in the corporate world.
Well, especially being a female.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, wow, this is such a great story. And I love what you wrote here. You said, the way I look at it now is that I needed that Herculean story. In fact, I think I was given that story as a way to keep me alive until such a time that I could exchange mighty human for something much larger than myself. So what did you exchange the mighty human for?
That's a great question. Somebody who doesn't know everything. you know, I mean, I'm a Leo, so what a pain in the ass I've been for most of my life. uh, I don't have to know everything, but I know a lot. I know
Hmm.
I've lived a lot and I know a lot. And I think that one of my gifts is wisdom. And I am, I'm one of those people who love bumper stickers. And when social media came along and memes started coming in, and I'm not a country music song, but as a person, but some of the just boom words, just doom. I am somebody who's paid attention to the crux of things, and that has helped me so much in my own journey. It's like boom, there it is. Let's grab onto that and let's take off with it.
Hmm.
Now the new this human that is giving up the mighty human is um, walking with a different wisdom, a different consciousness that we have try to find names for it. But it's a different consciousness than human, and it is a consciousness that isn't dependent on experience for wisdom because it already has everything it needs. So it doesn't have to do trial and error. It doesn't have to do cause and effect. It is, and I'm getting to know that aspect of myself more now than ever. And it's rather delicious because it doesn't have mightiness to it, though it's so powerful. And it doesn't have opinion to it. And it doesn't have should to it. It is like a powerful, it's the metaphors and the analogies just go out the window, but it is like a mighty water that just will find its way, but is not attached to finding its way. Sometimes when I want to check with spirit about something, and it does, and how do I want to say this? One of the ways that I know spirit is talking is when it will give me something, but not be attached to whether or not I get it or not.
Okay. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the signs I'm like, oh, that was spirit right there. Because it's kind of difficult, it's kind of
Mhm.
difficult to know who's talking. So this mighty freckleless human is somebody who is wanting to surrender more to that wisdom than her own wisdom that I've gathered from experience. Because when we use that, we're using our mind, because our mind only has that to offer. Is regurgitated experiences,
Yeah.
defined and measured and interpreted incorrectly most all the time.
And
So
get people to agree with it.
right, because it's so right. Now, and I'll tell you something else. I fell in love with humans when I started working with humans as clients,
Mm.
because I saw source in their life. I saw and heard. I mean, they would be telling me one thing about their husband or their boyfriend or their ex or their work or their boss. And I would hear and see chess pieces being moved.
Mm.
And then I started seeing it in my own life. And that's what I mean. Like, I owe my clients. I should pay them all the money back that they gave me. Because I'm like, oh, I can see the same chess pieces. I was never alone, ever alone. We have it in our mind that this great force that we call God would rush in like the knight in shining armor and save us. And that is not how spirit works. Spirit works like, I want to help your soul evolve. It's going to take contrast to do so. I'll be here. I'll be here in the background, and sometimes I'll come to the foreground and I'll do stuff that you don't even know I did. And now I have faith in that more than so I can let go of the mighty me. But we're
Hmm.
like holding on to the mighty me before we let go, so we can grab onto the bigger me. And so I'm letting go slowly, 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 and it's working really well. I advise everybody do that.
Yeah. And I didn't know I was going to ask this question till just now. How is that knowing as much as you know, because we will never know it all, but
True.
we know what we know. And you were talking earlier about, this isn't the way it works. And there's metaphors go out the window. There's no way to really describe it. But you'd used the term earlier, it just is. And I think
Yes.
that's just such a perfect description. It just is. It
Yeah.
defies description, it defies labels, it defies any of that. But how is this knowing, this deep spiritual knowing, not the mind knowing, supporting you now in the times that we're in that are different
Mhm.
than I think any of us have experienced before? How is that helping you and how is it helping your clients? Can you?
You know, something that I was taught a number of years ago, and I was recently reminded that when an Olympian is, and I have no, I'm not trying to be an Olympian, but they're a great place to look to. When an Olympian is realizing that she isn't meeting what she knows she's capable of meeting, even though she's had some success and she's has signs clearly that she's on the right track, an Olympian will go back to basics.
Mm.
And what a lot of people aren't willing to do is go back to basics. And so recently, let's just say I haven't been willing to go back so recently, um, with this real, it's been very challenging. And I'm sometimes embarrassed with my own self about how unwell I've traversed this new territory. But I've had to go back to basics. And when I say go back to basics, is what do I believe in?
You got the
Who
shiver up the spine on that one. Yeah.
who has the power here?
Hmm.
And what part am I supposed to play in this? There's a female scientist many, many years ago who added to this well-established Freudian fight, fight, or freeze narrative. She added nurture to it.
Hmm.
So I've been fight, fight. I'm not a freeze person because I don't know. I'm not fight, fright, or nurture.
Hmm.
And so I've been all over the place. Back to extremes.
I can relate.
Sometimes,
Definitely can relate.
okay, it's a very extreme time. You've caught me
Hmm.
on a good day.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, because it triggers, it triggers, and I see this with my clients, especially with women. It triggers the sense of being underneath the power of the dysfunctional power. That is
Yeah.
that's a trigger that they were raised with. And if you're raised in a patriarchy, and this is not slamming men, this is a system that hasn't
Hmm.
been changed yet, and it needs to be changed. And most women are agreeing to, we've got to change this because it's not helping the earth, it's not helping me, it's not helping my children. So I've been all over the place, and I'm finding that I've been grateful in the past for similar situations that happened a few years ago. Uh, and I've had a taste of gratitude in this because I'm not I'm not being turned into a warrior like I would have been in the past,
Hmm.
but I am being turned into somebody who is going to be able to navigate this. And it may be that I flee. It may be that I do that, but it won't be because I was made to. It'll be because I know it's best for me.
Yeah.
I
And
look
that's
forward to
where
hearing
the
you.
we'll talk after.
Okay,
We'll
good.
talk after
All right, good.
because yeah, I've been all over the place. We'll just say a few words about that because and I asked for me that your answer was for me
Okay.
and for anyone who may be watching that needed that answer, but it was for me because I vacillate between feeling kind of strong and yeah, but then I also start to feel guilty that I'm not doing enough, that, I should be slamming people on Facebook. I should be writing nasty memes and let me point out the facts to you here. And
Yeah,
I know that that is not my job
very
because I
good.
also get so emotionally invested in it
Yeah.
that it takes my power away.
Yes,
Actually
it does. Yes.
diminishes me. And
Yes.
I know that I have other gifts that I have to use.
Very
You
good.
know, what I'm
Right
here
there.
to do is
Right there.
to give women opportunities to shine their light, to be on a platform, to find their voice, to do all those things. I can't do
Yes.
that if I'm bogged down about some nasty thing somebody said to me on social media.
Right. Right. As
It's
tempting
like,
as it may be.
as tempting as it may be. Yes,
And
yes.
isn't that interesting to be given the practice, going back to basics and having, feeling the reaction and not succumbing to it. That is
Hmm.
a muscle, that's a muscle. And I
It
really
is.
believe that you are, the work that you're doing in the world is very needed. And to be stripped of that power so that you can't do that work would be a travesty.
Hmm.
And
Thank you.
and
I
they
mean,
would win.
yeah, there you
And that
go.
and
There
that
you
ain't
go.
happening.
Yeah, no, no.
That is not happening. It's a rough time. It's a really rough time. So many, how we relate to others, how we feel within ourselves. I lived in a town in Gainesville, Florida, and it was a very, very politically active. These women were so, I mean, they were like, I felt like a little nymph, around these women. They were like, rah, like, woo. But something I learned from being around them, it was so interesting to me that they did a couple of things. They recognized whoever was joining their particular action were people, women who were going to be able to join that particular action. And there would be other women who would do something different. And then there would be other women who, and that needed to be accepted and okay.
Mm,
And that's a big
yeah,
deal. I'm
it
going to
is a
do
big
to a more,
deal.
it's a really, really big deal. Find out what you can offer and do
Hmm.
that. And anytime you have guilt around not doing enough, it is not from the higher source. It is from the human mind.
Guilt is never from the higher source, is it?
Ever, ever, ever,
Yep, it's
ever,
from our
ever.
ego, our
Yes.
ego. My
You're
ego's
doing
telling me
amazing.
that I'm bigger than this. I really, I've got influence. I should be out there just influencing people all over the place, right?
I
No.
can tell the difference when I am if I put something on social media. I can tell the difference between Vickie Mind when she puts it on and when Spirit originated it. And it is amazing how different it is. And people feel that. They
Yeah.
do, they feel it.
The responses are different,
They are. They
definitely.
absolutely
And how
are.
you feel about what you posted is
Exactly,
different. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love that other feeling so much more. And the older I
Yeah.
get, the more I want to feel good.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
That's a
Vicki,
big
this has been delightful. But how can our viewers learn more about you?
um, Anybody who's interested, my website is www.embracinghumans.com. And embracing humans, those two words put together were spirit given because humans need to be embraced.
Mm.
We need to be embraced.
Because at the core level of all humans
We're
is
amazing.
spirit. It,
That's right.
it's
Yes,
who we were, it's who we came here to be. It just
that's right. And the
takes a
more we
while.
heal, it does take a
Yeah.
while. And the more we heal, the more access we have to
Yeah,
that
I so
self.
agree. I
Yeah,
so agree. Thank
yeah.
you. And Vicky's text is in Vicky's text. Vicky's information, her social media information is on the text of this video. And be sure and read Vicky's article. Read it in its entirety because we jumped around a lot. We talked about things that aren't in the article. There's things in the article that we didn't talk about. So I just knew that we would go wherever we needed to go. And the last thing I want to ask you, well, two things before we leave is, do you have anything coming up you want to share with our viewers?
I do. I have a women's group that's going to start in May, and we're going to travel together for 6 months. I'm calling it the Spirit Group Community. We will meet once a month on Zoom and in person here in my home, but also on Zoom. We will meet for 5 months, and then we're going to end in a pajama party in October 11th at St. George Island. The things I'm going to cover is talking about our soul pod. I'm going to talk about, it's going to be way woo woo and also very 3D. For instance, we're going to
Mhm.
do soul retrieval, and we're going to do past life regression. And that is something that I'll just tell you this very quickly. I haven't wanted to do any retreats. And then I was in meditation or watching a video, sometimes they're the same to me, a spiritual video, and I finally got why I hadn't wanted to do it. And the reason I hadn't wanted to do it, Spirit is so beautiful, is because in my mind, I thought that if I did another retreat or another workshop, a series of workshops, that I would be doing the same teachings that I've done in the past, and I did not want to do
Mhm.
that. So, and that's happening for a lot of us. Like, we've got to do something new. We have to push the envelope. So
Yeah.
I went more way woo woo on this one than I've done in the past, and I'm very excited about it.
Yay. Yay,
Yes.
you.
Yay, I'm very excited about it.
Well, Vicki, before I sign off here, I'd love a final thought from you just to wrap all this up.
Trust yourself. Trust yourself. There is wisdom and knowing inside of us, and we have to be able to trust that that even exists, so that the noise of the programming and the conditioning and the shoulds are put to the side, so that we can trust ourselves for the next right action, for the
Mm.
next right decision. Trust yourself.
Great final words. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, sharing your heart, sharing that higher self that is you,
Yeah.
and for being my friend. I appreciate you, and I'm so happy we got this chance
Me
to
too.
hang out and do this together. But thank you, Vickie.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for the work that you do. And I'm so glad for this connection.
You too. Me
Yeah.
too. And thank you, whoever's watching this, for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, where we talk with real women who are living their lives on purpose and making their unique difference on the planet. To check out more information about the On Purpose Women Global Community and Magazine, go to opwgc.com. And you can also read Vickie's article in the magazine there, and that link is also in the text of this video. Thanks again for watching.
Thanks, everybody.